Hello, critical thinkers. I am Fred. Welcome to Critical Conversations HR. I've taken a little bit of a break from making videos on human resources and employee relations because I've been focused on this Robert Brooks case. So the purpose of today is to go over the press conference that the family did, but I don't want to assume that everybody watching knows the full story behind the murder of Robert Brooks at Marcy Correctional Facility. I have a number for everyone. 37. 37 is the number of days that Mr. Brooks has been deceased, has been murdered by the hands of New York State correctional officers, and there's been no arrest. There's been no arrest. No grand jury has been summoned. No one has been wearing bracelets since the death of Mr. Brooks, which is appalling. It's disgusting that such a public show of homicide and depravity cannot result in any arrest whatsoever. 37 days. So everyone keep that number in mind. 37 days. For those of you who don't know Robert Brooks and the story behind his murder, I'll give you a quick summary of what occurred. On December 9th, 2024, Robert Brooks, who was an inmate at Mohawk Correctional Facility, was transferred from Mohawk Correctional Facility to Marcy Correctional Facility. At the moment, we don't know what was the purpose behind his transition from one facility to another. The press conference that the family did, they, from my interpretation, did not know why he was being moved. The family didn't have a whole lot of information behind what happened, why he moved from Mohawk Correctional Facility to Marcy Correctional Facility. Some sources have told me, just in general, that typically when one inmate is moved from one correctional facility to another, it's because they got into a fight with another inmate, and for the safety of the inmate, they have to move them to another facility, or there was some sort of altercation between the inmate and a corrections officer. But again, at this moment, we don't know why he was being moved, and the family doesn't even have the full story why he was moved from Mohawk Correctional to Marcy Correctional Facility. Upon him being transferred, we see him being taken out of the van, and the rest is a horrible, gruesome depiction of depravity at its utmost finest. I mean, this is really depraved, what happened to Robert Brooks. It's really a horrible thing. He was beaten. He was, just mind you, he was handcuffed the duration of his beating. He was picked up by a rag doll. You can see a corrections officer shoving some fabric into his mouth. And if you take a look at the video, you'll see another officer holding Mr. Brooks' mouth down, his face down. It seems to be the CO's hand is over Mr. Brooks' mouth while that fabric is inside of his mouth. He was punched repeatedly. He was kicked. His groin was stomped on while he was handcuffed, while he was on a gurney, defenseless. He couldn't fight back. It's such a horrible way any human being can pass away. Extremely horrible. And what is so tragic about it, or what really is a blessing, is that we were, this is captured on body cam footage. Now, there's about the New York State Attorney General's office released 2 hours of body cam footage from 4 different officers. There's no sound. We don't know why other officers didn't have their body cams on. From my research, what I was told, these body cams were on standby mode, which means that no sound is being recorded, but video is being recorded. Maybe the officers didn't know about it. Maybe they did. We don't know at the moment, but it's pretty gruesome. So Robert Brooks was beaten, had his testicle area stomped on, picked up like a rag doll, helpless, hopeless, while these corrections officers stood around, looked at him. Some even laughed. There's footage of a nurse who was smiling about this. Meanwhile, everyone is extremely nonchalant about what's occurring. Robert Brooks was brought into that facility pretty much hogtied. His feet were tied. He was handcuffed, and the manner in which they brought him in, that by itself would cause severe injury. Robert Brooks was transferred to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. It's very possible on December 9th, the evening he went into that facility, he was killed. He was murdered right then and there and passed away. Because if you see the footage, his body is lifeless. His body's not moving, and it seemed as though at one point, again, I'm not a medical professional, but it seemed as though a nurse, is trying to revive him, not by CPR, but by pounding on his chest. Okay, and this body cam footage came out December 27th by Letitia James, the New York State Attorney General. The press conference that she did, I believe it was some sort of Zoom meeting that got put out there. It might have been a press conference, but the video footage, she said that on December 16th, they alerted everyone that an investigation was going to occur with these corrections officers to find out what happened to Robert Brooks. So this body cam footage was released December 27th. Robert Brooks was pronounced dead on December 10th. And as everyone may know, maybe you don't know, the New York State Attorney General's office recused themselves from investigating this case, and they stated, excuse me, that there's a conflict of interest because their office is representing the defendants. Well, they're representing 4 corrections officers that were named in lawsuits. Mind you, I did a video a while back ago, maybe a few days ago, about Mid-State Correctional Facility, in which you had 32 inmates who were brutalized. 2 of them were sodomized by corrections officers. Those inmates from Mid-State Correctional Facility filed a lawsuit. It was established in 2018, and in early December 2024, a decision was reached by the presiding judge. And that presiding judge indicated that there was wrongdoing, that there was excessive force being used against these inmates. So it's possible, and again, I don't know if somebody wants to confirm that. I would much appreciate that. If you can confirm whether, whether those 4 officers that Miss Letitia James mentioned were from Mid-State Correctional Facility, or we also do know that there are other cases of abuse, other cases of torture, other civil cases that have been filed against other correctional facilities and corrections officers in New York State. So at the moment, there have been 18 former employees, 18 staff members, 16 16 corrections officers and 2 nurses. Several days ago, it was 4. And 4 staff members were announced that they were suspended without pay. I don't believe anyone has been legally terminated yet from Marcy Correctional Facility. I could be wrong, but 18 individuals, 18 staff members of Marcy Correctional Facility are not working at that location. They're suspended without pay. Okay. I gave some serious thought about whether I wanted to do a video and show the body cam footage of the brutality, because there's no other way of going around this. And it's murder, it's homicide with depraved indifference. No one cared. No one saw a human being. And mind you, that we know that he was convicted. Robert Brooks was convicted of assault. He was doing his time for that stabbing of an ex-girlfriend, and he was doing his time for that and serving out his sentence. He had done 9 years out of a 12-year bid. So what we do know is that these corrections officers took his life, and it's clear that they took his life with depraved indifference. They did not see a human being. So I thought about showing the footage. You can go to a lot of different channels to see the footage and see the brutality. And I said I wasn't going to show it, but then I listened to and watched Robert Brooks' son, Robert Brooks Jr., speak about his father. And he said, although it was difficult to watch, that he did want people to see it. And I think when you have this level of brutality, to not show it is cowardly. People need to see what happened. There needs to be outrage, and there needs to be action. Now, we know that evil is prevalent in the world, whether you are a Christian, whether you're Catholic, Hindu, whatever, or you're an atheist. Most people do believe in evil, that evil exists, and that evil needs to be restrained. And when good men do nothing and everyone who stood around did nothing, they acted like it was commonplace and common practice. And I would not have believed that until I did my own research and found out about other abuses happening at New York State correctional facilities. So I do want to show people the footage of what occurred. I may not show everything. I'm going to show some pieces of it in hopes that you're outraged and you do something about it. You may not be able to protest to go to Marcy Correctional Facility, but you may be able to pick up the phone and call the Onondaga County District Attorney's Office, William Fitzpatrick, and blow up their phone line. And they also have an online form that you can fill out and voice your need to see justice done, to see these corrections officers pay for what they did in consequences. For me, children are vulnerable. The elderly are vulnerable. Animals are vulnerable, right? But you also have a prison population that's vulnerable as well, that may not necessarily have a voice because it's not very popular. So I am going to go ahead and share the footage. Mind you, I mentioned before that there is no sound. There is no sound to this. So I will play it. I'm going to stop it here and there just to give my thoughts, to give some feedback, because fair use. Okay. Okay. Give me a sec. Okay. Okay. So the footage is up. I'm going to play it and offer up some commentary. So I just wanted to stop it very quickly just to say that in this video that I'm showing, you'll see breaks, and it seems as though it cuts from one body cam to another body cam to show different perspectives. And it seems like it points that once it moves from one person to another, that it goes in time. So just FYI. Okay. Okay, forgive me if I have some buffering issues. Sometimes StreamYard doesn't like me playing these videos. So here we go. This seems like this is the transportation van that Robert Brooks was transported in. So let me fast forward a little bit. Okay, here we have Mr. Brooks in the examination room. Okay, this is when it cuts to another cam. Here we go. As you see a corrections officer holding a shoe. Okay, then we have punches. Mind you, he's handcuffed. He's restrained. He's helpless. Okay, you see his face bloody. He's been punched. Okay, and you see the foot. You see the blows, the punches from the CO on the left. Oh, okay. You see the punches to the buttocks. And okay. Then you see the officer's hand on the left. I think at this point they have shoved some fabric into his mouth. At this point, we don't have names and faces put together, but we definitely need to know who these corrections officers are, along with their faces. You see the mouth, the hand over here? I believe this corrections officer has his hand over Mr. Brooks's mouth with the fabric inside of it and covering it. This may be seen at a different angle, a different body cam. Okay, here we go. Horrible. Horrible. Absolutely defenseless. Struggling to breathe. Holding him up. Look, just punched him. This dude right here. This one. He needs to be perp walked. He needs to be in handcuffed. I want to stop it for a quick second because I forgot to mention, along with the New York State Attorney General's office, the recusal, you also have a cover up that the Brooks family attorneys mentioned, that there was also a cover up regarding what happened. So we definitely need to learn more about what happened in terms of how the CEOs attempted to cover up this murder. Look at this. Look, take a look at how they pick him up. A handcuffed inmate. They throw him up against the window. This is just absolutely shameful. It's shameful. There's no need for any of this. Okay. We jump to another angle. It continues with Mr. Brooks being up by the window there. Okay, now at this point, he's on the gurney. It seems like everyone has body cams here. Let's see. Yep. Well, so this is Michael Along's. Absolutely horrible. Take a look at how he's being brought into the infirmary. Just being in that position alone can cause major damage to a person's body. So this is another corrections officer's body cam. What's this? I saw some smiles. It just seems to be business as usual right now. Like everyone is just very nonchalant. Like this happens all the time. So another body cam, another officer. Another angle. Oh, look, he takes your shoe and he hits him with it. This lovely character here with the glasses. Look at this. Punches and kicks. Absolutely disgusting. And then, I'm not sure if you guys noticed this, but this officer here motioned to another officer to sort of pat him to move out the way so that he can punch him. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Okay. Okay, this must be a nurse. Must be one of the ones that got let go, suspended without pay. Okay, let me move forward. Okay, so this nurse here, RN Abe M. Kind of just very nonchalant, smirking, smiling. He's laughing now. This dude is laughing. This dude is laughing. Disgusting. This is at the point here where he's up against a window. So this is another angle. Oh, go back. They just see that hoisted into the hoisted into the air like that. Disgusting. Okay, I think. Okay, I think I think I had enough in terms of watching that footage. As you can tell, it's absolutely disgusting, deplorable. There's no excuse for what happened. It's depravity. It's just depraved. It's not easy looking at that footage. Obviously, he's dying. It seemed like he died around this time, and he was just transferred to a hospital later on that evening or the early morning hours of the next day, December 10th, so that they can buy some time to all get their stories together. This is absolutely just disgusting. Disgusting. I have no words for this. I have no words. Absolutely no words for this. anymore. So, what we have to ask ourselves now is like, how can this fucking happen in the United States of America? How could this level of depravity, when you have people who are sworn to protect inmates, to keep a safe environment for inmates, how could this happen? And just the level of like not caring, this is business as usual. It's very easy to see that this is just a culture. It's a culture of corruption. It's a culture where inmates are not seen as human beings, because if you were to treat an animal on the street the same way you treated this gentleman, Mr. Brooks, you would have been arrested. You would have had protests. You would have had media outlets, calling you a hater of animals, and you would have been arrested. But yet this occurs, and the media coverage is not that great. On a national level, it's minimal. This story hasn't gotten the traction that it should have gotten, and the level of outrage that it should have received from the entire United States of America. So what people can say is, why is this happening? It must be a culture, and that is a culture of corruption. So the thing I'd like to do is, I did a video some time ago about Mid-State Correctional Facility back in July of 2016. There was a raid. I believe it was about 30 corrections officers, that they call it the Day of Terror. So this Day of Terror came about after a corrections officer fell down, hurt his head. He was unconscious. The inmates actually pushed his emergency alert pin and summoned help, but there was a false story, a false narrative, that the inmates had hurt this corrections officer. That story spread, and 3 days later, you have this raid that occurred, in which 32 inmates were beat up, were brutalized, and 2 were sodomized. So what I want to do is play footage of an inmate giving his account of what happened. So let me put this up, and I give a lot of props to this former inmate who's telling his story, because there's a fear of retaliation, especially if you are incarcerated. Many inmates did not want to tell what happened, because they fear. So let's hear the story. Let me pull this up. Okay, here we go. Hopefully the sound goes in. It's only 2 minutes and 36 seconds. I'm going to stop it here and there.
July 6th, 2016, a busload of COs came into the correctional facility, Mid-State Correctional Facility, into the dorm 4H, and assaulted numerous inmates in a horrible, brutal fashion. It's really one of those events that you don't want to remember, but how could you forget it?
And there's a very important thing here to note that this video mentions, is that no corrections officers were charged. No corrections officers were arrested. No one faced any criminal charges for what occurred.
I got lower back injury that turned out to be diagnosed as a partial herniated disc. Went through several bouts of physical therapy in the following years. And really always looking over your shoulder, not being able to trust who was out there. A lot of the officers that were in that facility transferred to other facilities. So always concerned that if they.
Yeah. So what seems to be, the situation here is that, once officers go too far, instead of them being terminated, instead of criminal charges, they just transfer them to another facility. It's kind of similar to the HR world, where you have people that harass other human beings, whether they sexually harass women. Instead of them being terminated, they move them to another department, another business unit, and they do the same thing over and over again.
Spot you, that they might cause trouble for you in other facilities. So that's always a mental burden, and all kinds of forms of retaliation happen, not just physical, but just mental games, denials of things you might need, those type of things going on after such an incident. We were told, we were threatened that we weren't going to be using the phone, we weren't going to make any mail deliveries, no one was going out to see medical.
So just imagine that, being incarcerated, not being able to use the phone, not getting any mail, not being connected to the outside world, and not getting any medical treatment. That was the thing the gentleman said before I cut him off.
So one of the phone cords there in the dorm were already cut. They had multiple phones. The other one was not cut, and one of our roommates named Romeo was insistent on using the phone to call his parents, people. When he went out there to use the phone, an altercation ensued. They beat him up, dragged him out of the dorm, and he never returned, and they came and packed him up. That was the last we saw of him. Weeks after.
So we hear an example of an inmate attempting to, use the phone, and he got made an example of. They beat him up and took him out the dorm. Probably they might have transferred him to another facility further away from his family.
Still trying to deny medical attention. Some people were able to get down to there down to medical because they passed out on the walkway for not having their medication, and then they took them to the infirmary to get their medications that they were needing. So that was one way, but the situation was tense until we got the letter from Sylvan and Miller, which was a cease and desist letter, and then things loosened up a bit, and then people would begin to be moved to other dorms, off the 4H dorm to other dorms around the facility.
Okay. Okay. So you hear it directly from the former inmate, the retaliation, the beatings. You, as an inmate, you attempt to exercise your rights. You get beat up, retaliated against. You basically get denied medical treatment. So, and this occurred back in 2016, and there are a bunch of other cases that I was made aware of, and other civil suits in which the New York State Attorney General Letitia James is defending, and it's pretty bad because nothing is being done about it. Nothing is being done about it. Even to this day, no arrest have been made. 37 days, 37 days, no arrest, even with body cam footage. Even with body cam footage. So I want to go into the press conference that the Brooks family did with two attorneys announcing a federal lawsuit, and then they announced plans for a state lawsuit that's going to occur soon. So let me pull this up. Give me a quick second. Okay. And just one quick thing. I'm gonna let this play to some extent. I'm gonna stop it. Concerned about fair use. I may not play the entire thing. I do have some parts highlighted that I want to make reference to. I think, like for me, a couple of the biggest takeaways about this was, the Brooks family, the son, Robert Brooks Jr., and, the younger brother, both seem optimistic and positive that there will be arrest. They do want, uh, they do want arrest. They do expect consequences. They do expect for these gentlemen to be arrested, incarcerated for what they did. They took their family member away from them. I think another takeaway from the press conference is that it really humanized Robert Brooks. It humanized, the family. So I think that was a big takeaway, and also another takeaway for me was the lack of information that the family was getting. That was mentioned a couple of times, and I'm going to try to play some of the segments where the family members made reference to not getting information and getting information from the news, from the media, and not from the correctional facility that their father and older brother was in. So to add insult to injury, the lack of communication, the lack of information about their family member. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for anyone who's on the live stream. Anybody wants to come on, you want to connect and chit chat about this with me and give me your take on it. There's a link here in the chat. I'm gonna post this link again. You can feel free to click the link and hang tight. Let me put the link again. Okay. Okay, so this is the press conference from yesterday morning, 11 a.m., January 15th. Okay, here we go. Pardon the buffering. Come on, come on.
Should I begin? Okay. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Mazur, ELIZABETH from the law firm Hughes, Sokol, Piers, Resnick, and Dim. I'm joined this morning by my colleague, attorney Steve Schwartz of Faraci Lang. I'm also joined by Robert Brooks Jr., the son of Robert L. Brooks, and Jared Ricks, the brother of Robert L. Brooks, both of whom you'll hear from shortly. On December 9th, 2024, officers at Marcy Correctional Facility tortured and killed Robert L. Brooks. During this horrific occurrence, several other Marcy staff stood by, watched, and did nothing. Robert had done nothing to justify the use of any force against him, much less deadly force. Unbeknownst to Robert's killers, body-worn camera passively recorded much of the attack on video.
Just pausing it for a second. The attorney said something I I didn't really hear last time. She said, unbeknownst to his killers, body worn cameras were on. So they must have thought that these cameras were not recording anything.
Marcy staff beat Robert to death. They believed that their actions would never see the light of day. After killing Robert, they went about their daily business as usual. Although the video of Robert's killing is extremely difficult to watch, it holds a mirror up to the violence and abuse Marcy prisoners face on a regular basis. It shows what Marcy correctional officers will do when they believe no one is watching. It paints an all too real picture of the rampant abuses that New York prisoners have reported for years, pleading for help and warning that the lives of people in custody in New York prisons are profoundly at risk. This morning, we have filed a federal civil rights lawsuit in the United States District Court for the Northern District of New York on behalf of the estate of Robert L. Brooks. Mr. Brooks was paying his debt to society. He deserved to live. He deserved the opportunity to finish his sentence and return to his family and his community.
I stopped it for a second because she said something that was key. She said, you know, he was in the process of paying his debt to society. You know, for those, most of you don't know me, that's okay. I've worked in nonprofit organizations doing human resources my entire career. I also was a director of direct care for a group home facility. One of the nonprofits I worked for worked exclusively with prisoners, ex-prisoners, and their family members in New York State. So I'm semi-familiar with some of these correctional facilities. I've been to some of them. I've been to Rikers. I've been to Albion State Correctional. I've been to Sing Sing. And, you know, one thing I just want people to note, because some of the people that I worked with in this nonprofit organization, they were ex-prisoners themselves. And you would be surprised how someone can end up in a bad situation. Now, it doesn't mean that they didn't deserve it. You do have some people that are innocent behind bars, but all it takes is one bad decision to end up in a world of mess, to end up incarcerated. And it really could be anyone, whether you're dealing with substance abuse issues, whether you made a mistake. So it really can happen to anyone. So there are some people out there that state that, you know, he got what he deserved. I don't believe that. He was fulfilling his sentence, and those corrections officers, they were not, you know, the judge, jury, and executioner. Their responsibility was to keep the inmates safe as well as keep themselves safe. And Robert Brooks did not pose any threat to any of those officers. So I say all that to say that, you know, being incarcerated, it could happen to just about anyone. If you make a bad decision, it happens.
Now I'm going to turn it over to Robert's beloved son, Robert Jr.
Okay. Now, I am not an emotional person by any means. I'd rather, you know, keep everything inside. I'm Puerto Rican. We're not emotional, especially men. We're not emotional. But, you know, seeing his son, you know, tell the story and how his father's death had impacted him, and his dreams that he had, you know, with and for his father, it really broke my heart. And this young man is a man that could be my son. I am actually older than Robert Brooks. I'm a couple of years shy of hitting 50 myself. So this young man could, he's old enough to be my son. So for me, I will say this was the biggest thing that impacted me, was hearing from the son himself about how it impacted his family. So I'll play some words from him.
Good morning. My name is Robert Brooks Jr. Today, my family is going through an unimaginable amount of pain. No one should have to experience what we are experiencing. The murder of my father by the people who are supposed to keep him safe. But we are also feeling incredible support for our community here in Rochester and everyone who's reached out all over the country. We want to say thank you to everyone who is standing up and saying what happened to my father should have not happened to anyone. I can't describe what it's like to receive the news of his murder or the experience of watching that awful video. I felt helpless, like I was there with him and there was nothing I could do. I wouldn't wish this nightmare on anyone. But as painful as it is important that the world sees these images. They have the power to spark the change we need. I want to tell you more about my father, though. He was more than the last final moments. Robert L. Brooks was a neighborhood hero. He was a great man. He was everyone's favorite uncle. He wanted to make sure everybody was happy around him. That's what made him happy. He was very passionate of creating music and writing short stories. One of my favorite memories of my father is when his car broke down, but he still made sure we got to the studio every day. I will continue his legacy, and I will make him proud by making my music. While my father was serving out his sentence, we would talk regularly, and we began to dream of a new life when he had got out. Those officers in the system they worked for, they robbed us of that opportunity. And I would never get my father back. They'll have to take it from me forever, but we will not allow his death to be in vain. This pain must lead to justice for my father and for our family, and we will not stop fighting until we get it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jared Ricks, Jared Ricks. Robert Brooks was my older brother and my only brother. Robert was 11 years and 1 day older than me, and as an older brother should, he was always there when I needed him. My first words were rah-rah for Robert. He was my role model, my voice of reason, my listening ear, and now he's gone. Growing up, I felt so lucky that Robert was my brother. Everyone loved Robert, and most of us wanted to be like him. I vividly remember rolling up to family gatherings and feeling like a celebrity as our family greeted us. Me personally, I wanted to walk like him, talk like him, dress like him. I wanted people to have that same glow when I walked in a room. No matter who you were or how long it'd been since he last seen you, he'd always make you feel important. My brother was my guardian angel before he got his wings. We frequently went to the movies, bowling, shopping. As I matured, he never shied away from those tough love conversations, which is part has given me the strength to be with you guys today. My brother and I shared a passion for music. He'd often bring me to the studio. When I got older, he started asking for my input on his music. He even let me get on one of his tracks, and I just knew we would go platinum. My brother had a meaningful and unique bond with so many people, some of whom I've known my entire life, and some who have shared their stories with me over the last month. My family and I are taking things day by day. You know, days turn to weeks, weeks turn to months, months turn to years. My brother had done 8 of the 12 years that he was sentenced to as seen fit in the eyes of the law. But the 17 individuals at Marcy Correctional Facility gave him a death sentence, and that's just not fair.
So I'm just pausing it there for a quick second. He said something profound. His older brother, he said, 8 years he's been incarcerated. these gentlemen gave him a death sentence. They took away his life. It didn't have to be that way. He could have served out his sentence, gone home to see his family, and that didn't happen. So, very, very tough to hear the family members, tell their stories. And his younger brother, I mean, that's a big age gap. So I can see, a younger brother having an older brother, so much older, and just, seeing this guy as his idol, which he described here. I'm going to jump ahead to another, section. And okay, here we go. Okay, buffering. Okay, as that buffers, let me see if I can maybe.
Was your reaction when you saw that video for the first time? And had you known before that any of the circumstances that led to your father and your brother's death?
Want to start, Robert?
Yeah. So when I seen the video for the first time, I was speechless. I was devastated. I am a junior, so when I did see those officers beat my father, a part of this, I felt like I was there. I was him in that moment, and that it could happen to anyone. So the real word I would use is just devastated.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would say I was devastated as well. Just knowing that there were 17 individuals, however many were directly associated with delivering the lethal blows, but just knowing that I couldn't be there to help them, I just felt very helpless and enraged.
Do you, have you obviously probably seen that the governor has toured Marcy? There's a bunch of reforms that you've talked about. Do you think that's obviously too little too late in certain situations, but do you think that's a good start? Do you think that's PR and a lot more needs to be done? What's your reaction been to what has happened so far?
Well, I think, let me just start out by saying that we're encouraged by the reaction of the governor and the administration. Obviously, words are one thing and actions are another, and we have to see follow through, and we intend to stay on that. Robert and Jared, you want to add anything to that?
So yeah, referring to what Steve said, yes, the bottom line is, yes, we want them to get prosecuted, but we want them to do it the right way instead of not rushing it. So as far as the prosecution goes, we're trying to give them a little leeway, but yes, we want answers. So yes, we do want them to get.
So I think he said something that was very, very encouraging, at least, for me, when he spoke about, he seems to be patient, even though there's no arrest at the moment. He stated he wants this to be done correctly. He doesn't want this to be rushed so that, there are no mistakes that occur and people get off on some sort of technicality, right? So that was encouraging to hear from Robert Brooks Jr., that he seems to be, patient. He's waiting. They're waiting for a prosecution. That's key. Then also the attorney Steve on the left of Junior spoke about something he said that I liked, in terms of, words are something, but actions speak louder than words. In terms of, the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul. Now, I really don't have very positive opinions on the governor of New York State and the New York State Attorney General, because both of them knew about these abuses. Both of them knew about it. They did nothing. They defended these corrections officers in the past, or these civil suits that have come up have defended these officers, and it's obvious that they're trying to cover their butt. So I'm not very hopeful in terms of, in terms of the governor. The only thing that's going to move this forward is public pressure. That's the only thing.
Get prosecuted.
So there have been multiple groups that have been getting together, protesting, raising awareness. I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of speak to all these people who want to mobilize to do something. What should people be doing? What should be the goal?
Liz, you want to take that?
Sure. I mean, obviously, it's really, I think, uplifting to see so many people have such a powerful reaction and also just express condolences and support for the family. Really, in my opinion, that's the most important. We've gotten so much mail, so many just phone messages from random people wishing the best to the Brooks family and kind of cheering us on in this fight. Maybe I would, I don't know if Robert or Jared has something to add.
I would, me personally, and for our family, I would like to say thank you, thank you, thank you. The support is tremendous. It doesn't go unnoticed. And we want you to keep fighting. We want you to keep going. And if anything we can make happen and we can make possible to work together, we will do it. I just want to say thank you again.
I'm going to move forward to one more point in the video that I think is key. Okay. Apologies for the buffering issues.
You mentioned cover up, and I actually wanted to know, when you did first get that call and get the information from Marcy, what was the story that Marcy Correctional told you happened, and how did that compare to what was actually seen on the video?
So when we first started calling, obviously, when you find out that a loved one has passed, it's what's the cause of death? Was he in a fight? Who was involved? And for the most part, they wouldn't give us any answers. So I would say for the first week or so, we were getting all of the news through the news in real time, which is, I find, kind of disrespectful a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But as time went on and we met with the governing bodies and things like that, we became privy to some of the situational things that led to this.
Liz, you want to add anything about the Attorney General's office?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I guess maybe I'll back up a little bit too. When families lose a loved one who's in prison, it's often really hard to find out anything about what happened. It's extremely distressing for families. It sounds like those agencies, when they were initially communicating with the family, were pretty tight-lipped about what happened. We did meet with the Attorney General's office on the Monday before Christmas, and they kind of briefed us on things that had been going on, and they wanted to make sure that the family had the opportunity to see the video before it became public. And we certainly appreciated that. We could tell they were working hard on that investigation, and but there's still a lot of information we don't have since there's an open investigation. They obviously need to keep some things quiet now.
Okay. Wanted to stop it there. So I'll include a link if you want to see the full press conference. Just wanted to show some of the highlights behind it. Again, I told you my main takeaways. Family story, very touching, how this has impacted them as a family. Something needs to be done. This is too long. I mentioned the number 37. Today marks 37 days that Robert Brooks has been dead, deceased, murdered by the hands of corrections officers. and there is still no arrest, no grand jury, no perp walk, no mug shots, and it's absolutely disgusting. Waiting patiently for the arrest. So, you know, if anyone has any recommendations, feel free to put that in the chat, make a comment. You know, as of now, the thing that I've been telling people to do is contact the Onondaga County District Attorney's Office. The DA there is William Fitzpatrick. Call their office, push them to make an arrest, spread the word about this murder that's occurred. And mind you, this can happen to anyone. There's been brutality in New York State correctional facilities for a long time. With the Brooks death, it seems like a lot of this is going to come out. You know, I pray for accountability. I pray for consequences, but there needs to be action. Spread the word. You know, if not sharing my video, I don't care, as long as you share information about this. There are other YouTubers who are covering this. So spread the word. If you've watched until the end, thank you. I appreciate the viewership. Have a good night.